We like to highlight things that are kind of buzzing around the tri-state.
And, well, sometimes literally. Today, no exception. I mean, from making yards look beautiful to creating safe spaces for pollinators, we are joined by Bee the Keeper founder, Brandon Reynolds.
Yeah, and he's doing just that here with us in the studio this morning. Lots of energy. Love that. And you have a very unique kind of concept and approach when it comes to landscaping. Tell us about it.
Yeah, and I love the fact that we were able to talk about this at the beginning of the show. I mean, it's, a lot of times, and this is really what we do in the beginning when we're meeting with people, is we're breaking the paradigm of, hey, I grew up thinking that a landscape was something that I had to manage. I got to micromanage and helicopter parent this yard every season so that it stays alive and looks good. But then when we get connected with native landscapes, like native perennial pollinator feeding plants, like what we have at WCPO, then you get into a situation where, hey, this grows bigger and better every year. It looks great, and it doesn't require a ton of resources to keep together.
We got to see some of your work, and you recently did that for us here at WCPO on our grounds. I think we have some video of that, so maybe we can show that a little bit. But tell us sort of what some of the plants that you put out there.
Yeah, so this is going to be, we're calling this a monarch way station. I mean, of course, there's going to be hundreds of species of pollinators coming in, different types of bees, different types of moths, hummingbirds. It's going to be special. But I think that one great plant that we've got here is we've got two different types of milkweed. We've got butterfly weed and we've got swamp milkweed in here. And so starting next year, because I even tried it at my own property this year, of putting in a small milkweed and then seeing if the caterpillars came, and they did, we're going to see next spring, summer, fall, we're going to see a lot of different monarch caterpillars and butterflies flying through here on top of bees, moths, and we're going to see some hummingbirds too. It's going to be great.
Now, Brandon, what's fascinating to me is that you come at this from the perspective of the pollination, right? Like you started out as a beekeeper and then landscaping came later.
Yeah. I mean, I was beekeeping after I left my job in advertising. It was a great company, Curiosity Advertising. Look them up. They're cool. They always taught us how to ask questions and to be curious, as in the name. And so one thing that I asked myself is, hey, we're putting out all this advertising for other companies, but then I want to see if I can advertise sustainability in a way to get people to think more mindfully about the environment. And so I found beekeeping. That took me into thinking outside of myself and thinking as a pollinator. And then I found landscaping, and it's, oh, wow, if I just create the safe space for these pollinators, these bees, my brethren, right, then they can take care of themselves. And we get rewarded because we get rewarded with that beauty that we originally set out to have a yard in the beginning.
Yeah. Are there plants that are best planted in this area?
Yeah, that's a really special question. And I think that you've all heard native perennials is special. Plants that are from this region that have evolved great relationships with other wildlife. I mean, when you think about when we were talking about the monarchs a few seconds ago or minutes ago, the monarchs specifically, they feed and reproduce with the milkweed plant.
Right.
And so that's a plant that has a unique relationship with the monarchs because they need it to, build their species. And so native plants, they not only thrive here with the environment and the conditions, but they thrive with the wildlife. So it's a win-win relationship for everyone involved. It's fun.
That's awesome. And I was really excited, too, because I know you mentioned that it's colder now, the new landscaping outside, it's not as flourishing. Obviously, you deal with the seasons and stuff. But you had said an interesting thing, too, that, after the first year or so, you won't even have to water this? It's self-sustaining?
Oh, this is super cool. Yeah, so when you ask what plants do best here, and I love talking about this because we're in Cincinnati.
I can tell you.
Yeah, it's a city of relationships, right?
Yeah.
Cincinnati is pollination. And so when you think about the landscape outside, I'm not in a forest watering these plants. I'm not out in a prairie watering plants, but it comes back every year without human intervention. And so what we have outside, you get the marriage between, we love aesthetic, we love what looks great, and then we also love function for the environment. I mean, that's what our partners at Sustainable Sites, we talk about all the time. You got to have both. Can't just look great and not be functional. Can't just be functional and not look great. And so outside, because it's reminiscent of real life, those plants are not going to need water after they get established next spring.
Right.
And that's great because we don't want to just continue irrigating when they keep themselves together. It's super cool.
Now, you started out as a beekeeper, and before we let you go, I've got to ask this question.
Here we go.
How many times have you been stung?
This year? Or? Gosh, it's gotten better. as I've gotten into beekeeping, as I've been beekeeping since 2017, I get less every year.
Okay.
In the beginning, I would show up at a hive and they'd say, hey, we're busy right now. We're trying to make honey. We got some babies we're nursing here. Can you not come? And I'm showing up and I say, I'm a beekeeper. I got to save the day.
Right.
And then I get stung because they're like, hey, we didn't need you. Whereas now, if I see that they're working on something, it's like, oh, y'all busy? I'll come back tomorrow. And I get less things.
Well, Brandon, unfortunately, we're short on time. We really appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.